second shooting.
First it was startling, like, what's that? Then pretty clearly after that, it was apparent something wasn't right.
I need a partner.
When the Garlic Festival shooting appeared on the news, they were the first people I thought about. Like, where's my family?
We knew that something was transpiring. We had heard that there possibly be a second shooter. The Gilroy Garlic Festival is literally the safest place that our families can be.
We didn't know where the shots were coming from. Then festival goers started coming into the alley, upset and startled and crying, and they were looking for a place to go. We had these two big refrigerated trucks, and we just started lifting people up onto the deck and putting as many of them that wanted a place to hide into the both refrigerated trucks. We had a lot of people in there. Had a couple of really trusted young people, some of my students that were in leadership roles in my choir that were in there, and I just looked at them and I said, "Can you help me just keep these people calm?" And they said, "Of course, Mr. Souza. I'll never forget."
We were motivated to help this community because we thought we need to honor, in some small way, the victims of this tragedy. Trevor Irby, Kayla Salazar, and little Stephen Romero, who was only 6 years old. And one of the ways that we thought we could honor their memory was by providing the best services and the best support to their families and to the community from which they came from, the Gilroy community.
One of the aspects of a mass victimization response is fear and a sense of anxiety and not knowing. News coming out of a mass victimization response is spotty and inaccurate often because of the chaos at the scene. And there were thousands of people there that night when the shooting happened, and they needed our help. There are a series of best practices in mass victimization response, and one of them is the Family Assistance Center. And they're typically created, ideally within 24 to 48 hours after the incident.
We're very fortunate in our county to have community prosecutors. Because we had Adam Flores in Gilroy, he actually grew up in South County, he has deep ties there, and all of those contacts proved to be invaluable in this kind of crisis.
It was a really intense time for all of us who were setting it up and trying to provide the best services for this community. And it's hard to be back, actually. It feels like a lot of the pain and emotion from that time was just under the surface, and being right back here brings it right back.
I was so surprised to see, like literally in a matter of hours, the Red Cross was here, the FBI was here, of course all of the team from the district attorney's office was here, we had people from the governor's office, so pretty quickly you realize how fast this was mobilizing to come in and support our community. And the thing I loved so much was that it was really about that notion of support. You know, they were going to get in here to take care of the victims and the people that were impacted so greatly by what had happened just a day before.
So when we walked in, I think there was a mixture of emotions. I do remember meeting with a victim who had witnessed the shooting and also came to the aid of a victim who was shot. And the emotion there was so raw, it was so acute. It was beyond anything I'd ever seen, and I've been doing this line of work for a very long time.
It was nonstop. So at first, I think, I just speaking for myself, going off of adrenaline. Okay, what's this problem here? Hey, Adam, you got that? Okay, I got this. I'm eating here.
I agree. Like every day it was go, 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 on to the next thing. Okay, what are we going to do this day? What are we going to do? Because each day had some kind of challenge, because you're literally starting this center from nothing. Then all the victims start rolling in, and you appreciate the magnitude because of all these people who need help.
Because we had taken over the whole school, we didn't want to hand people a map and say, wander your way to various things. So we had them check in first at the library to get a quick needs assessment, and then as people needed to go to different parts of the school, we had people to walk them from place to place, so they always had someone with them to help navigate them through.
It was the entire auditorium just with tables laid out and just brown bags of just everyone's personal effects, from strollers to sunglasses, water bottles.
A lot of property was left behind because people, that wasn't their priority. Their priority was to run and get out and be safe.
Every person who came into the resource center had a different story. You would hear about families being separated, and I couldn't find my mom, and I couldn't find my sister, or there was kids there that didn't have their parents because they were part of an organization, whether it be soccer or swim club, that were doing volunteer hours. So then they were there with their peers and not their parents.
We had people that were walking in visibly in crises, people crying, people upset. We, saw a lot of trauma in their eyes and their body language and how they conducted themselves. We had a FAC hotline, and people were calling that hotline constantly. I was on the phone with one victim, and easily I could hear 5 different incoming calls. People were desperate for information and assistance. Obviously, we're fortunate to have behavioral health present, who provided a lot of the individual counseling. We had victim advocates also providing emotional support and peer counseling.
It was a lot. It was a lot to take in, and some stories got you really personally, but you just had to hold it together for the people that were there.
At the end of the 2-week period, we saw over 700 people at the Family Assistance Center. It took a village. We could not have done it alone. I think everybody had the same agenda, which is to help our community. And that's really all that mattered. So I think everybody checked everything at the door and said, we are here, how can we help? And I think having that mentality really is what made the FAC successful.
We had the community. We had people calling the hotline wanting to help, wanting to volunteer their time, wanting to donate water. And it was really a beautiful thing to see the community respond and step up to help those who were impacted by this shooting.
I think that it speaks to how deeply everyone felt the urgency of the cooperation. Our usual practices, our usual ideas for the pace of how things are going to get done were not going to be good enough at all. And that urgency, that collective urgency that we felt, really fueled the launch.
We still provided services ongoing through the district attorney's office with the victim services unit. And we would have these meetings with the community to get input, and you would see they would just voice how much they were still hurting, they're still healing.
We had a lot of tears in this building, and people feeling tears of sadness, relief that there was someone that they could talk to, relief that there was someone who could help, and also tears of frustration that things that had seemed normal in their life a week before now all seemed turned upside down. All of those emotions were part of what we were trying to help people with, but also something that we were all feeling as well.
You know, there's just something about driving, especially down in South County and in rural parts where it's just open, you're not surrounded by buildings. After spending 14 to 17 hours at the FAC, experiencing trauma, witnessing trauma, it's nice to just have that space to think, because the FAC was not a single day event. It wasn't 2 days. It was 3 days. It was 4 days. And it was 10 days. And it was 11 days. And it just, 12 days. It just kept going.
I think for a spouse or a family member of first responders, specifically in my case, police officers, it was a very frightening time. We are, taught to be prepared for times like this. We just hope they never happen.
It's a remarkable thing in law enforcement that when something really, really bad is happening, everyone is running away from the bad thing that's happening. And these 3 Gilroy police officers ran towards it. They have families. They're not dressed in helmets and body armor and like they're a SWAT team. They were 3 officers that were doing security for the Garlic Festival. And yet, knowing what they had and what they were up against, they still ran towards the danger and neutralized it in 60 seconds. They saved dozens and dozens of lives. They saved hundreds of people from being shot. And they're just remarkable officers. It was right around now. It was right around now. An act of evil tore the day apart. It only takes a minute to tear a day apart. The reason he did not murder or maim hundreds more is because of 3 incredibly brave Gilroy police officers. And for the rest of our lives, we will never forget those 3 officers and 1 minute of selfless bravery. Gilroy Corporal Robert Basuino, Detective Hugo Del Moral, Officer Eric Cryer.
Honramos a esta comunidad, nuestra comunidad. Honramos a muchas personas anónimas que estaban aquí ayudando en el parque.
Those 60 seconds were a time of evil, but that minute and the minutes, hours, days, weeks, and months that followed showed Gilroy's defiant answer to evil. Our answer to evil was courage, service, empathy, and finally, resilience.
I think we were all really nervous when students were returning because we're like, obviously we had never dealt with a tragedy like this ever in our community. community, obviously that trust, that whole security that we felt, the things we took for granted. Festivals are huge, you know, in Morgan Hill and Gilroy. It's sort of just what we do during the summer. And that weighed on us just in terms of, you know, checking in and making sure that everyone was okay.
All of those things that they experienced at the shooting don't go away magically in 2 weeks, in 1 month, in 6 months.
We did a lot of talk about trauma-informed teaching. We connected really closely with our mental health agencies. They were going to be present on campus. One of the signs that the mental health agency, they put these really welcoming signs, and one of them was, "We are here for each other." And so I remember taking a picture of that, and that really became our theme for the year.
We realized right away that this was a community that was in shock and in mourning and needed all kinds of services. And it allowed us to serve the community in a different way.
The Gilroy Strong Resiliency Center is somewhere where people can come and seek support and services, long-term support specifically. If you can imagine, people aren't forgetting about what happened in that next week or putting it aside. They're living with that trauma every single day. And so we created the Resiliency Center so that people would have a place to find comfort and support and resources, because this is a long-term recovery process.
The Gilroy Strong Resiliency Center is that place where we can get connected to a supportive counselor or group or education session to really help us navigate those feelings that come with all of this.
So there's different triggers. I've actually heard from members of the community that the smell of garlic is triggering for them. The sound of a helicopter can be triggering. The sound of a fire truck can be triggering. Specifically right now around COVID, the lack of community support that people have.
We will be the first resiliency center in the state of California, and we will be run by the district attorney's office. And people tend to think that as a prosecution office, that's all we do. But we do much more than that. And the Victim Services Unit is designed to support the community and those victimized by violence, regardless of whether or not there's prosecution. And again, those services will continue for as long as those victims need us.
Sadly, in America, we have a lot of experience with mass shootings, and this is a best practice.
Not too long after Gilroy, there was a shooting at a school in Los Angeles County. And that same day, the director of Los Angeles County Victim Services reached out to me, just like I called directors up and down the state when, unfortunately, we had a mass shooting in Gilroy. And we draw on each other's experience. It's a club that nobody wants to be a part of, but now that we all have done this, it's important that we learn from our experience and help others. And I think there are ways that we have capitalized on what we've learned to help other jurisdictions when they've needed it. And if something happens in another community, we will be available to assist them too.
After October 1st, people started saying, Vegas strong.
But the truth is, I don't always feel strong.
Sometimes I feel scared,
Anxious, alone.
During my time of recovery, these heartfelt messages gave me hope and comfort. We now want to pass on this love to the communities in Gilroy, El Paso, and Dayton.
Dear Romero family, the Pittsburgh community is so sorry for your tremendous loss. Dear Irby family, the senseless massacre in Gilroy. Dear Salazar family, I want to offer my condolences. Words are inadequate to convey the pain we feel. Unfortunately, our community has firsthand. All parents in Pittsburgh and all over the country send our deepest wishes for healing and peace. When I saw those letters from the people in Pittsburgh who had a mass shooting at a synagogue, at first I was a little confused, I heard, oh, we have letters from the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. I said, oh. And then I was told, therefore, the 3 families whose loved ones were killed in Gilroy. And thought that was very nice. I understood, before reading the letters, I then understood what the letters meant. And it was people that had experienced a similar kind of tragedy trying to reach out and help the people in our community that had just experienced a horrific mass shooting. And while it's not the kind of community one wants to belong in, this community of people who've lost loved ones to mass shootings, I think it is something that brings tremendous healing to know that your pain and grief is shared by others who have some understanding and deep appreciation of what you're going through. So I thought it was a very human gesture.
I think music is an essential part of our human experience. We commissioned a new composition, May Our Eyes Remain Open. It goes through a range of emotions and imagery, and ultimately that your experience is your experience, and that is okay. And we're here as a community.
All of the positive things that came out of the aftermath of the tragedy of the Gilroy Garlic Festival was the community has really pulled together. When we went into shelter in place, it's like, do you need food? How do we get resources to kids? How do we get resources to families? So I think that that's been a positive outcome, that spirit of, we are here for each other. We are strong as a community. We will continue to support no matter what we're faced with.
Through the Family Assistance Center and the Gilroy Strong Resiliency Center, we're trying to show tangibly that we care. You can show that you care with words, and that's really important, but it's even more important to show that you care with deeds, to let your deeds speak for you.